Want to expand the reach of your content? Start a podcast. Feature industry experts on your show and leverage the influence and reach of your guests to grow your brand. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. Today, I've got with me Ashby McGarry. She is Senior Marketing Manager over at Prodigo Solutions. Ashby, how's it going today?
Hey, it's going well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Ashby, we're going to be talking about some lessons learned as you've transitioned industries a couple times in your career, but most recently as you joined Prodigo, we're going to be talking about, taking lessons learned from your previous marketing experience, but not necessarily thinking that those will apply to a new industry, a new buyer persona, some of the things you might need to check at the door when you're making that sort of transition. So before we get into that, I think it would be good to give folks a little bit of context into your marketing journey, your career so far, and what you and the team at Prodigo are up to these days for a little context.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm our Senior Marketing Manager here at Prodigo Solutions. I've been with Prodigo about a year now. Prior to that, I was still in B2B marketing on the healthcare side. And getting me to here today, I've been in both B2C and B2B. And Prodigo has been a really exciting journey. We're definitely a growth company, and we have a lot of stuff going on. So my team is extraordinarily busy with all the new ventures and new lines of businesses that we're starting. And it's an exciting time to be here. I feel like my team is growing constantly, and we are a lot of trial and error and a lot of really great success around here. So before Prodigo and healthcare, I did both B2C and B2B, which kind of guided me into the supply chain side of things, which is a very, very different market and has very different challenges. So it has been an exciting journey to get here.
Awesome. So we're going to be talking about that as you're, approaching a new industry. What things can you take from your previous marketing experience, and what things do you maybe need to tweak or just flat out leave at the door? So tell us a little bit about, kind of the first steps you took, Ashby, as you joined Prodigo. You're looking at a new industry, new topics, new persona. What were some of your first steps to determine what strategy are you really going to try and help implement as you build the marketing team there at Prodigo?
Well, I think first, it's always, I'd like to tell people that I remember, way back in undergrad when you're learning first about what you, in business school, what you're going to do, or the key rules, right? And there's always, somebody says there's 3 rules to life, right? And when you get into your professional career and you're really challenged and required to lead a team, you realize that those 3 rules change often and constantly. And the things that these basic rules or basic channels that you were told to follow, you can follow them, but then you are a follower for the rest of your career. And so it's really important to note that in every industry that you're in, that those key rules change, and they're supposed to change, and they're supposed to evolve. So, as anybody kind of gets into their career or hires, I always look for people who are curious about new opportunities, that don't expect the status quo or don't expect what today's solutions will be tomorrow's solutions. So as I've kind of moved along in my journey, and then even into my MBA, I realized that some of the most successful people around me are those that don't continue the same equation, and that instead they change up what's going on and they evaluate each problem individually without anchoring to past biases. And I think that that's probably been such a core part of my evolution here to where I am now, because funny stuff, my first job out of school, I was in marketing and PR for a construction company. It was residential remodeling. And so it was extraordinarily different than healthcare and supply chain.
Yeah.
I got to, market beautiful kitchens, which is totally different. And if I were to use the tactics I used then today, you can't sell a supply chain the way that you can sell a kitchen. I think it's great at any time to really look at whatever industry that you're in and independently look at through a lens independently from previous experiences. And then as you start to plan, you then refer back to your experiences and the expertise of others. And that way you're not allowing previous biases or the security net of I know how to do this, anchor you to something that may not be successful in a new industry.
I love the way that you're talking about that there in the balance, right, of learning new lessons, but also drawing on some of the wisdom from your past experiences. So I imagine one of the first steps you took was to really evaluate, the new industry. And probably part of that evaluation too is, all right, where is our company at in relation to the market that we're trying to serve, the market that we're trying to lead, the market share that we're trying to gain? Tell us a little bit about how you went about that evaluation process as you stepped into this new role recently, as you mentioned, like a year ago here.
Well, I'll say that I stepped into the new way that I approach things by making a mistake. When I was first starting off in my career, you just have this energy and vibrance and think that you just are going to come in and change the world, right? You just have this passion and think that you know it all, right? And so you come in and you throw your ideas out there as if you're some innovative genius. And, you make that mistake once and realize that if you come in that hot, people are not going to appreciate it. And so I've gotten to where I am because I know the value. And I think anybody who moves up in leadership really knows that to be a really good leader and to really gain trust wherever you are, you need to evaluate the current state of your company, good and bad, right? What talent is there to offer? What do people know? What do people think? What did they think of the marketing person before you? What do they think about the future? In the industry, okay, what happened 10 years ago? What was happening 5 years ago? What's happened the past 2 years? And where do we see trends going? What is being posted? What's being written? What do people say? And the same goes with your competitors. I heard this actually on a podcast, some really good advice that I follow. And it's, if you really want to know how your competitors are doing, each and every morning, you should do two things. One, you should see the jobs that they're posting. If they're adding on to their teams and they're adding on to divisions, you will see how well they're doing, right? And what their initiatives and goals are. If they're replacing a lot of the same jobs, you also see what's going on. And two is to check patents. So I like to check patents in the morning and see what's new and, are our competitors getting into our space or not. So that baseline evaluation of the industry and your company is so important because then you can gauge how far you have to go and where you need to go and what the true needs are. Because, starting any role, it's kind of like trauma surgery. You have to prioritize what you're going to fix first.
I love that. It's like trauma surgery. It's like a home remodel, right? What's going to come first? Going back to that kitchen. I just had to go there. Sorry. Well, I love that, Ashby.
Yes.
I love those two little nuggets on competitive research, especially if you're at a new company or in a new industry. Kind of the next step from there, you mentioned this to me as we were chatting a little bit offline, is not to just look at where your company is, what is the state of the industry and some of those future trends, but how your company got there and why are they there right now? Why are they using the marketing strategies that they're using today or have been using? Because I think what you'll say here is probably, in relation to that concept of coming in, trying to make too many changes, being a bull in a china shop, but you'll be able to speak to it better than me. But I imagine if you're asking the why and not just saying, hey, this needs to change because, then you're going to form some better relationships with the other functional leaders in the new company that you're joining, right?
Yeah. So that second stage is a diagnostic stage, right? You really need to understand the why. And I do joke and say that marketing and any new job is really like trauma surgery because it is a diagnostic moment where you have to, everybody wants something from you quickly, right? You're the new person. Everyone wants to see what you're going to do and what you're going to offer. And so people are expecting, a quick turnaround and a quick onboarding time, especially at the, managing the marketing department. That's what people are hoping for. And so I always, when I start, and especially when I started with Prodigo, is I just set up with meetings with as many people as I can. And I just ask as many questions as I can. And I get back and I write down what they said and I think about it. And then I follow up with them and say, I thought I understood this, but I don't think I do. And I just want your thoughts. And it's so invaluable to get the perspectives from your and we're a software company, right? So we've got Q&A. So we've got our development team and our builders and the guys that really have their hands in it all and are building our software. We have our client management team that fixes things and are front facing to our clients. And we've got our account management team, our sales team, our data team. We have a ton of teams here, and it's so important to ask each team what is their priority, and then what were their pain points with marketing before, and then what are their pain points in general with the company, right? When I came in, I remember hearing, we don't communicate, departments don't communicate well across one another. And while that might not necessarily be my job, a simple implementation of a lunch and learn gives marketing the credibility that I listened to you and that we heard you. So that diagnostic stage, that second step into understanding what everybody wants and pain points are, is really, really important. That way, it's the triage, right? Okay, this is bleeding out quick. This has got to be fixed first. This is second. This is third. And that way, it's almost like it just perfectly feeds in to the next phase, which is creating a strategy.
Imagine it, a spreadsheet filled with rows and rows of your sales enablement assets. You've devoted 2 years to organizing this masterpiece, only for it to stop making sense. This was Chad Trabucco's reality. As the head of sales enablement at Glint, a LinkedIn company, he's responsible for instilling confidence in his sales reps and arming them with the information they need to do their jobs. However, when his glorious spreadsheet became too complex, he realized he needed a new system. That's when Chad turned to Guru. With Guru, the knowledge you need to do your job finds you. Between Guru's web interface, Slack integration, mobile app, and browser extension, teams can easily search for verified knowledge without leaving their workflow. No more siloed or staled information. Guru acts as your single source of truth. For Chad, this meant Glint sales reps were left feeling more confident doing their jobs. See why leading companies like Glint, Shopify, Spotify, Slack, and more are using Guru for their knowledge management needs. Visit b2bgrowth.getguru.com to start your 30-day free trial and discover how knowledge management can empower your revenue teams.
Tell us a little bit about how you make that pivot. When did you kind of decide, okay, I've done enough diagnosis, I've done enough triage here. Now I'm really going to start getting to work methodically. Tell us a little bit about that pivot and, again, striking that balance of leveraging what you know, but also not duplicating what you've done in the past, right?
So I think that after that diagnosis stage where you've talked to everybody and you've heard their pain points and heard their opinions, you start to come together. I always find it really beneficial. It might be cheating, but it always really helps me, is that before I present out a big strategy or recommend something, I put something together and I challenge myself to make sure, okay, yes, this worked in previous B2B, but it might not work here. Let's, think outside the box. I get it together, and then I go back to maybe it's the head of account management or the head of someone in sales or client services, whomever it might be, and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I know that you said that this was a pain point from the previous marketing person, or this was a pain point previously. I'm thinking that this will meet the needs, and this is kind of how long it will take. What do you think? And so when I get that strategy together, I really do it in components, and I get the buy-in from everybody. And that way I know what, at first, are they believing in it or not? Are they hearing me or not? Do they trust me or not? And that's one thing that marketing departments have to have more than almost anybody else, is trust, because because all marketing leaders know that you're incorporating all lines of business in what you do, right? Because if I'm pushing a message out that says, to sales that we can fix everything in the kitchen sink. And then our implementation team goes, no, we can't. Well, I'm not benefiting anybody there. I might have made the best sales pitch in the world, but we're going to have dissatisfaction later. So in that strategy creation, I always, of course, look at our competitors and see what they're doing. I look at industries that look like ours, but aren't ours. Like, for example, when looking at some marketing campaigns, we're a software solution. We're a marketplace solution for healthcare. So if you're a hospital and you need to order syringes or anything, you use our software to purchase it. I looked at bookings.com. I looked at how did they message to people on how to use their platform? What did they say? What did they do? It's not our industry at all, but they've done a good job of communicating to people how to use their site. So that's a big part in making sure I'm not duplicating my efforts. So that way, when I then go down and communicate internally to the company, if they're not hearing my vision, if they're not understanding what I'm saying, then the market probably won't, because I have a chance to be face to face with them. So that strategy stage is so important. It's just so important to incorporate everybody and get everybody's buy-in.
I love what you were saying there, Ashby. There are two things I took out of that. You mentioned just very briefly about evaluating your trust and building that trust with the other departments. I think, when coming in, trying to be, all right, I'm the new marketing leader. I'm going to bring the heat, right? I'm going to bring some new ideas, some new flavor, some new flash. And you fail to stop and take the time needed to build trust. And that, that takes some EQ, that takes some, no other way to say it, just takes time to build that trust and that relationship with the other functional leaders. And then the other thing, I just love that how you looked at booking.com. Look for other look-alike industries with similar dynamics, similar challenges, similar go-to-market, even if it is vastly different on its face. I think that's something, whether you sell to healthcare, to HR, or to marketing, that folks can take from that. Ashby, in the 4 steps that you and I were talking about offline, you mentioned this idea after you've kind of gone through the diagnosis phase, you've started to formulate the strategy in step 3 here. Your 4th step is to try to get people to break it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So this step actually is my favorite. And I think that it does, that strategy stage builds trust and people begin to trust you and they want to work with you. But the thing that really pushes them over into okay, that this girl or this woman is authentic is this break it stage. And I actually love this stage and I genuinely mean it. And so what I do is I get, leaders of each division. And I also say, hey, someone from your team that thinks outside the box and loves to come up with challenges and will challenge ideas, bring them into this meeting and I will present the strategy and I'll present the marketing strategy and sales strategy. And I then tell the room, I want you to break it. And I'll tell them this before and at the end. And I'll say, listen, this is not final. I want you guys to really believe in this. And I want you to think that it's going to work. So the only way that this is going to work is if you point out the holes that I'm not seeing, right? And my background is in account management and it's definitely not supply chain or operations. So there are things that they'll come up with that I could have never thought about. And so we do this kind of round table and I'll say something and I wait and I'll say, okay, let's break it. Like, where are the gaps here? What's going on? Where are the faults? And same with messaging. And as this kind of brainstorm happens and as people communicate with one another, they see that I'm taking notes and I'm serious. And they realize that I am extraordinarily authentic when I say, I want this to meet everybody's needs. And I want us to go to market and show our excellence. And so after I've gotten all their feedback and their thoughts, I go back to my strategy. And, in some instances, I change a lot. And in some, I change almost nothing. But when I come back to it and I resend out what I'm thinking to do, people know that I've heard them and that their input is in this. And I always say this, and I say this about, whether it's politics nowadays or business or life or anything, I want everybody's opinion because only 2 things can come from it, right? I either become more solidified in what I believe because I have a justification for it and I have enhanced the way I've communicated it, or my opinion has become enhanced. So maybe you brought up a point and I don't have a reason why, and I don't have a response to you. Well, I better change what I'm doing or justify why I'm doing what I'm doing, which only makes me more prepared and then only makes my team more prepared.
I can definitely relate to that as a parent. When you get those hard questions and it makes you think about it again, you're like, wait a second, I need to think about this. Or it's just really, as you explain it, as the old saying goes, teach it and you learn it twice, right? Whether it's parenting or marketing, I think there's a great lesson there, Ashby. I love what you're talking about. We're definitely very like-minded here. For folks listening to this that kind of want to recap there, those 4 steps that you really unpacked, if you are developing your marketing strategy for a new industry, not necessarily a brand new sector, but a new industry to you. And even if you're just joining a new company that's taking a different angle or a different persona, I think you can follow these steps. Number 1 was evaluate the current state of both the industry and the company. Both of those are important. Number 2, diagnose how your company got to where they are. Why are they using the strategies in sales and marketing that they are today? Good, bad, or indifferent, but understand that why. 3, as you start to formulate your strategy, remember to build trust with the other functional leaders and do your competitive research. Ashby shared some really good tips on doing that. And then number 4, get them to try and break it, because it's going to make your position stronger in one of the 2 ways that you were just saying there, Ashby. So you said it really well. I just wanted to try and recap for folks today. I love this 4-step strategy that folks can follow as they're looking to build out their strategy in a new industry to them. If people listening to this, Ashby, would like to reach out, ask any follow-up questions, pick your brain, or just stay connected with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Please, absolutely. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn and go ahead and request me and send me a message. I'm always eager to hear others' ideas. My team is always growing. And I am always interested in other people's thoughts and feedbacks and where they think their industry is going. And so please reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and see what we're doing here at Prodigo.
Awesome. Ashby, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. This was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be on.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big 3, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.